My name is Lena Hart. I'm 38 years old, Commander U.S. Navy, though that title tends to disappear when I'm not in uniform. Tonight, I'm not. That seat's reserved for officers who actually led something. Captain Raymond Weston doesn't even look at me when he says it. He flicks his cufflink, smooths his jacket, and gestures toward the table like he's redirecting traffic instead of a career Naval Intelligence strategist who's logged more silent wins than half this room combined. I pause. Just long enough to register the dismissiveness. Just long enough for it to sting. I swallow the words rising up my throat. My dress uniform feels a little tighter in the chest, a little more suffocating than when I arrived. The ballroom is all polished marble gold trim and chandeliers that cost more than my entire annual housing stipend. The Naval Gala, our supposed night of honor, is already moving around me. No one else seems to notice what just happened, because to them, I'm not the story. I'm just the planner, the quiet one, the woman behind the curtain. I step back. My heels click softly against the tile. The seating chart doesn't lie. I was assigned that table. And yet, now I find myself being directed to a folding chair near the exit, barely in view of the podium. "Please don't cause a scene," Weston says low under his breath. "It's unbecoming." He smiles afterward as if that softens the blow. I nod, wordlessly. Not out of agreement, but control. What he doesn't know is that 3 months ago, I intercepted a call on an encrypted military frequency codename Highburst that exposed his direct involvement in rerouting civilian casualty reports during a failed extraction in northern Syria. What he doesn't know is that I didn't bury the file. I buried my name in it. And what he doesn't know yet is that the Admiral read it this morning. I sit in the folding chair and count my breaths. The gala rolls on. Retirements are toasted, accolades delivered. The band starts playing something soft and string-heavy that feels like we're all supposed to forget the bodies we stepped over to get here. I watch Weston hold court at the main table. He leans in when people laugh, claps on cue, offers handshakes like medals. His uniform gleams. The silver eagle on his shoulder catches the chandelier light just right. It's a practiced performance. I've seen it 100 times. Hell, I helped write it once. I used to believe men like him just didn't see people like me. Now I know better. They see us just fine. They just think we won't fight back. My phone buzzes once, then again. I glance down. A secure message from a contact inside Office 17. Just 4 words. He knows. It's happening. I don't move. Don't smile. I just straighten my spine, fix the crease on my skirt, and fold my hands in my lap. Because I've waited long enough. Then the Admiral stands. No one notices at first. He's been seated quietly all evening, a ghost at the edge of every conversation. The room doesn't fall silent until he clears his throat once, then twice, and the microphone in front of him picks up the low rasp. He doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't need to. Before dessert, he begins. "There's one matter I'd like to address." Chairs shift. Conversation fades. All eyes turn to the podium. Weston adjusts his seat, straightens his collar, and leans back confident. He thinks the Admiral is about to name him the next Chief of Intelligence Support Division. I know because I saw the projection documents myself last week on a desk I was never supposed to be near. He thinks this is his coronation, but the Admiral doesn't say his name. Not at first. He just continues. "There are those among us tonight whose contributions have gone unspoken, buried beneath bureaucracy, overshadowed by louder voices. I feel my chest tighten. I know this rhythm. I've heard it in dozens of debriefs. It's the calm before destruction. There are those, the Admiral says, who took credit, and those who took risk." He turns then, not to the crowd, but to Weston. Captain Raymond Weston stand up. Weston's jaw tightens. He rises slowly, still playing the part, still thinking this is ceremony. The Admiral steps forward, not smiling. "You are hereby relieved of duty effective immediately." A hush falls so heavy it nearly shatters the chandeliers. "Your clearance is suspended. Your commendation for Operation Ice Raptor is revoked pending formal review. You will surrender your credentials to the oversight team outside this door." Gasps, whispers. A camera flashes just once before someone is told to put it away. Then the Admiral does something I've never seen in my career. He reaches up and strips the silver eagle from Weston's shoulder. I can hear nothing but my own breathing, and somewhere under the noise of my heartbeat, I swear I feel justice arrive like a tide. The Admiral turns, and for the first time tonight, his eyes find mine. He doesn't nod, doesn't speak, but I know. He read the file. He saw the truth. And tonight, he made it real. I didn't come from medals. I came from the smell of boat fuel, the sound of hammers on steel, and a family that thought discipline was love. Charleston, South Carolina, my birthplace, my backbone, and the first place I learned to speak two languages at once, English and survival. My mother was a naval mechanic. My father was a welder who called emotions a waste of salt. We didn't talk feelings in the Hart house, we talked performance, work ethic, what time you clocked in, how clean your boots were. I got my first pair of combat boots before I got my first kiss. By the time I was 17, I knew two things. One, I was never going to be just a support crew like my mother. Two, I wanted to outthink the battlefield, not stand on it bleeding. So I applied to the U.S. Naval Academy. I remember my father's face when I got in, half pride, half fear. He'd only seen women on ships cleaning up after the brass. He didn't know what to do with a daughter who could break down strategy maps faster than he could build a car engine. I graduated top 10 in my class. Not highest, but highest in silence. I didn't need to be the loudest voice in the room. I just needed to be the one whose analysis made the mission come home. They sent me to Bahrain first. I was 24. Fresh out of comms training. Fast-tracked into Naval Intelligence under joint operations. The first time I intercepted a coded Russian Farsi switch phrase, the translation saved a convoy from walking straight into an ambush. No one clapped. I didn't want them to, because the moment you expect applause in this job, you start chasing the noise instead of the truth. I rose fast, not because of politics or charm, God knows I didn't have either, but because I knew how to see. Pattern recognition, data immersion, the kind of intuition you don't put on paper because it sounds too close to magic. By 32, I was embedded with a Black Ops unit under the NSA as a field liaison and strategic debriefer. That meant I read, rewrote, and reimagined every move they made in real time. I didn't carry a gun. I carried a satellite key, 6 encrypted codes, and a memory for detail that scared most people. One commander called me the ghost in the wires. Another called me the woman who watches God blink. Then came Raymond Weston. At first, I admired him. Sharp, brutal in precision. The kind of officer who gave you a target and never checked in until it was done. He found me in a briefing room in Ankara after I redirected a failed field op and saved 5 lives by catching a timestamp error in a data relay from Jordan. You belong in the room where the maps get drawn, he told me. And for a time, I believed he meant it. He sponsored my promotion to commander, got me a clearance upgrade, pulled me into task force planning on operations I wasn't even supposed to read about, let alone rewrite. I thought it was respect. Now I know it was convenience. When my recommendations worked, he took them to the brass and stamped his name on the folder. When they failed, rare, but it happened, he sent them back down with comments like, tighten the margins. The girl gets over-ambitious. He never said it in front of me. He never had to. I heard it through whispers, read it in memos, and saw it etched in every sideways glance I got when I entered a room he'd just left. Still, I stayed. Because even shadows can shape empires if they know where to stand. 2 years ago, I led a quiet overhaul of the mission vetting algorithm for cross-agency task approval. My code cut approval time by 47%. It also blocked 2 high-risk ops from proceeding without deeper legal scrutiny. One of those ops, Ice Raptor. It went forward anyway under Weston's override. It went bad. Real bad. 7 civilian casualties. 1 dead contractor. A PR disaster waiting to happen. Unless someone scrubbed the data. 3 months later, Weston was promoted, and I was told good instincts, but your tone in the file was a bit aggressive. Keep it clean next time. That was the moment something broke in me. Not because he got away with it, but because I realized I'd helped him do it by being the kind of officer who never asked for credit, never pushed back, never demanded the damn seat at the table. I'd built my whole career like a ghost. But ghosts don't get medals. Ghosts don't get promoted beyond their usefulness. Ghosts get thanked offhandedly in speeches where their names are unavailable due to classification. And then they're forgotten. So I stopped trying to be quiet, stopped shrinking, stopped hiding my footprint in the code, and I started keeping receipts. Every timestamp, every intercepted message, every falsified log Weston's team pushed through to cover the Ice Raptor fallout. I didn't take it to the press. I didn't go rogue. I went strategic. I built a file so clean, so airtight, and so laced with legal signature flags that the Admiral wouldn't be able to ignore it without implicating himself. And then I sent it. One line. Subject for review. Ice Raptor chain of custody, undistorted. No signature, no request. Just truth. And then I waited. Not for revenge. Not for applause. Just for the system I'd served for 16 years to finally see me. The Gala was never supposed to be the moment, but it became one. Because when the Admiral looked me in the eye across that room after stripping Weston's rank, after pausing in that impossible silence, he did something no one in this uniform had ever done for me. He witnessed me. Not as backup, not as support, but as the woman who'd made the call no one else dared to make. The truth is, I didn't go looking for a fight. I went looking for a pattern. That's what intelligence work is really, not dramatic car chases or whispered meetings in alleyways. It's long hours with data streams, comms logs, raw feeds that no one else wants to touch. It's waiting for the pieces to speak to you. And when they do, you listen. The Ice Raptor briefing didn't feel off at first. The op was stamped high risk, but clean with cross-agency approval and command sign-off from Weston's office. According to the paperwork, it was surgical, successful, and swiftly closed. But 2 weeks later, I intercepted a voice fragment from a Farsi-speaking contractor embedded with humanitarian aid in the same zone. They say it wasn't a weapons lab. They say it was a school. That line made my stomach twist, not because I believed it. Outright rumors spread fast in the dark, but because when I pulled the original target logs for Ice Raptor, there were gaps, timestamps that skipped seconds, thermal imaging that had been reclassified twice. No post-op drone confirmation, and that was not normal. I filed a quiet inquiry, nothing accusatory. Just a flag on a line request clarification field, confirmation asset unclear. The next morning, my access to the Ice Raptor log folder was revoked. That's when the Cold War started. Not with shouting, not with orders, with silence. I stopped getting calls for joint briefings. My name disappeared from update threads. Weston's office didn't deny my access, they just moved me sideways. Politely, officially, strategically, like I'd developed a mild infection and was being quarantined without cause. 2 weeks later, my promotion file, which had been in final review, was paused for reevaluation. When I asked why, I was told there are concerns about your tone in recent reports. A little too much commentary, a little too much interpretation. That was rich. Considering my interpretations were the reason 3 previous ops hadn't ended in disaster. I ran into Weston in the hallway outside the STF. He didn't say hello, just glanced at my folder and said, "Sometimes staying in your lane is the best way to stay useful." That one stuck, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I already suspected. He knew. He knew the Ice Raptor op had gone sideways. He knew I was sniffing too close. And he'd decided I was more dangerous than valuable, which meant I had a decision to make. I thought about going to JAG, but I'd seen what happened to the last officer who tried that, discredited, isolated, quietly reassigned to a posting in Guam. I didn't want retribution. I wanted proof. So I pulled every backup I had, raw audio captures, decoded location data, even a side-channel log showing Weston's team altered the building's classification status 4 hours before the strike. It wasn't just an error, it was a cover-up. But here's the thing, I couldn't prove intent. I could only prove action. And in a system like ours, intent is the part that sticks to people. I compiled a packet anyway. Flagged each redaction, each irregularity, and matched them against standard procedures. I named no names, but I didn't need to. Anyone who read that file would know exactly whose hand had pulled the strings. That was the professional war, the personal one that happened when the Gala invitation arrived. My name was printed wrong, Lieutenant Hart instead of Commander. No table assignment, no mention in the honorees list, but Weston. He was listed as keynote speaker. The final twist. A week before the event, I received a pale yellow envelope in my office mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of official Navy stationery. No signature. Just a pre-printed message. Thank you for your contributions to Operation Ice Raptor. Your efforts are appreciated. It wasn't signed. Not by Weston. Not by anyone. That was when I made the decision. I wouldn't speak. I wouldn't shout. I would let my evidence speak for me. I went back into the system and uploaded the full packet under a legacy legal review thread titled Joint Ethics, Command Conduct Inquiry. It bypassed Weston's filter. By the time he saw it, it would already be on the Admiral's desk. There were rules built for this, and I knew exactly how to trigger them, because I helped write them. Still, I had doubts. Doubts that no one would care, that no one would read it, that I would end up just another invisible casualty of a war fought behind oak conference tables. But the night before the gala, I got a one-line email. We need to talk. In person. Tomorrow. Signed Admiral C. Rames. That was all. No confirmation. No threat. Just presence. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because I already knew what I was going to wear, what table I wasn't going to sit at, what silence I was going to hold. And when the moment came when Weston looked across the room and saw everything unraveling, he would realize too late I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the architect of his reckoning. The thing about betrayal is that it rarely looks like a knife. More often it looks like a thank you card, a handshake without eye contact, a chair with your name quietly missing. 2 days before the gala, I walked into my office and found my belongings already boxed, not cleared, just moved. My nameplate had been replaced by a post-it reassigned desk 4C lower annex. No explanation, no context, no email. Lower annex isn't even in the main building. It's a sublevel near storage fluorescent lights. No Windows Wi-Fi so slow it still breathes in dial-up rhythms. The message was clear. You're not welcome here anymore. I tried to laugh it off, even made a joke about it to the IT guy when I went to reconnect my login. He didn't laugh. He just looked uncomfortable and said, "They said you're under review." My voice cracked when I asked, "For what?" He shrugged, like it wasn't his business, like I wasn't his colleague just last week. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment surrounded by my old field notebooks and data stream printouts, looking for something, anything, to remind me I still mattered, because the silence was deafening. No texts from my team, no messages from command, no updates from the Admiral. Just a growing sense that I'd pulled the pin from my own career and was now standing alone in the blast radius. The lowest moment didn't come from my enemies. It came from someone I once trusted. A colleague, Beth, who'd co-written the Iran recon framework with me, who once stayed up 48 hours decrypting a hostage ransom call by my side. She walked past my desk in the annex. Didn't even say hello. I stood to greet her. She looked away. "Beth," I said, confused. She paused. Then quietly, "I can't be seen talking to you right now." It hit harder than any official reprimand ever could. That night, I found an envelope in my mailbox. The outside read, "For your service." Inside was a generic unsigned certificate of recognition for support work related to Operation Ice Raptor. No rank, no commendation number, no real acknowledgement, just support. I stared at it for an hour. It felt like a slap, not because it was cold, but because it was designed to be warm and failed completely. Like they wanted me to feel thanked while also making sure I knew I would never be seen. I went to bed that night and didn't sleep. I lay awake rehearsing every moment where I could have stayed silent. Every point where I could have stepped back, played the game, smoothed my tone. And for a few bitter hours, I wanted to. I wanted to erase myself from the narrative, wanted to write the Admiral and say, "Forget the file. It's done." I wanted my friends back, my seat at the table, my name on the record. But around 3:17 a.m., I sat up and opened the audio file again. The one I had buried deep in my encrypted archives. The voice of a Syrian local contact our translator who had risked his life getting that transmission out. The building was not what they said. You must tell someone. They are lying to you. I remember his voice cracking. I remember the static, the fear, and I remember Weston's report saying, all on-site intel confirmed hostile activity. No discrepancies noted. I closed my laptop, lit a single candle in the corner, and just whispered, I won't let you disappear. I wasn't speaking to myself. I was speaking to everyone they'd erased before me. So I ironed my uniform, pressed the ribbons just so, and I walked into the gala like I belonged, even though they told me I didn't. I walked through the lobby alone, no escort, no assigned partner, no handshake line. And when I reached the entrance table and showed my name, the attendant blinked, tapped the list again, and said, I'm sorry. We don't have you down as assigned to any table. I smiled, not kindly. I just said, that's all right. I brought my own. I pulled out a collapsible chair from my bag, one of those field deployment ones we used in mobile command, sat it right by the back wall, and waited. That was the moment Weston spotted me, and that was when he said it. That seat's reserved for officers who actually led something. The insult wasn't new, but the power behind it that had already started to crack. He just didn't know it yet. The silence after that wasn't just humiliation. It was grief. Grief for every woman in uniform who had to earn twice the respect for half the title. Grief for every good soldier who buried their instincts to please their chain of command. Grief for the part of me that still wanted his approval. And then, in the middle of the clinking glasses and the brass band warming up, the Admiral stood. I didn't know what he'd say. I didn't expect vindication. I just braced for more erosion, but instead he tore Weston's stars off his shoulder, and in that moment, as the room gasped, I remembered who I was. Not a ghost, not a support, but a commander, a woman who watched an empire try to bury her, and documented every shovel of dirt. I didn't set out to burn down anyone's career. That's not how people like me operate. We don't chase destruction. We chase truth, the kind that survives redactions, denies erasure, and stands on its own whether anyone believes it or not. But when the truth threatens power, the instinct is always the same: bury the file. Discredit the voice. And when that voice belongs to a woman, you don't just get buried. You get erased quietly like you were never there. So I started writing, not memos, not accusations, just evidence. I pulled the Ice Raptor logs, not the sanitized PDFs they gave command, but the original heat-scrambled records from the drone captures. I recompiled them in raw format with nothing filtered. I cross-referenced movement pings, intercepted voice comms, and field asset reports from 2 other Allied units whose time logs didn't match the mission parameters. Then I added the location tags from the NGO in-country, showing the building was listed as a temporary medical station for at least 5 days prior to the strike. Even that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was a metadata field someone forgot to scrub. It showed a manual override for the non-hostile tag executed 3 hours before the mission went live from a terminal inside Weston's command module. I knew I was holding a loaded weapon. Not in the way most officers think about weapons. Not bullets or missiles, but language. Dates, silence. The kind of weapon that once released couldn't be walked back. So I didn't just send it up the chain. I built it to live beyond me. I encrypted the full dossier using a NATO Joint Ethics schema, one of the same systems I'd helped write years ago. It's not flashy, but it has a failsafe. Once submitted through that system, it's locked to TimeSender and a mirrored validation server housed in Belgium. Not even a U.S. Admiral can recall it once it lands. And I sent it. Not from my government address, from my own verified credential on the record, because if I was going to speak, I wasn't going to whisper. The subject line was short Ice Raptor, final analysis, flagged breach. The body, even shorter, submitted with full legal signature under Directive 3F, authenticated by Joint Asset Hart Commander. You'll know what to do. And then I waited. For 2 days, nothing. I went to work, sat in the annex, ate alone. Every time my phone buzzed, I checked with a racing pulse. But it was always trash, spam, weather updates, not justice. Until the night before the gala. A direct message landed from a name I hadn't seen in months, Admiral Charles Rames. He'd overseen operations across 3 continents, once chaired Joint Intel Council, the kind of man who doesn't send messages unless someone's about to have their entire career rewired. It said, "You built a case no one could ignore. It was passed to oversight this morning. There will be action. You may not be credited. But know this, you stopped something bigger than one man." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I read it again, and finally, I smiled. Not out of joy, out of certainty. This wasn't about Weston anymore. It wasn't even about Ice Raptor. It was about the fact that someone like me, someone who speaks up without shouting, could still be heard. And better yet, could change everything. That night, I printed the entire file again. One hard copy. Bound it in a plain black folder. Taped a note to the front for the record. For every woman who wasn't believed the first time. I left it in my safe. Didn't bring it to the Gala. Didn't need to, because by then, the system already had it. And for once, the system was working. I didn't know what Rames would do. I didn't expect him to stand in front of the most decorated officers in the region and remove a man's rank in silence. But when he did, I felt nothing triumphant. Just still. Like the moment when the tide pulls back after a storm and all the debris is finally visible. And you realize who really built the shore. Weston's downfall wasn't because I fought harder, it was because I fought smarter. Because I wrote my name into the evidence. Because I stopped waiting for someone to back me up and chose instead to be undeniable. After the Admiral stripped his bars, the room went still. No applause, no chaos, just disbelief. And behind it all, a quiet understanding. Something had shifted, something unspoken. Because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it just stands up, looks you in the eye, and makes a decision. I didn't move, didn't smile, didn't cry. I just sat at my folding chair in the back of the room, while the man who told me I didn't really lead anything was led out without a word. And when he passed me, he didn't speak, didn't look. But I saw his hands shake, just slightly. Like someone who's starting to understand what power really looks like when it doesn't need to shout. The silence after the Admiral's words wasn't heavy, it was surgical. Every eye in the ballroom tracked the glint of those Silver Eagle insignia as they fell, clattering once against the marble floor, before skittering to a stop at Weston's feet. He didn't reach for them, he didn't speak, and for the first time since I met him, he looked small. Not just exposed, diminished. I remember watching his throat bob as he swallowed something dry. No words, no anger, just a flicker of a man realizing his shadow no longer scared anyone. A lifetime of unchecked command collapsed in the sound of a pin being removed from a shoulder. The Admiral's voice carried without raising. "Captain Weston, you are hereby relieved of duty. Your security clearance is suspended effective immediately pending further investigation by the Joint Conduct Tribunal." Weston's face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth, but the Admiral didn't stop. "Your actions under Operation Ice Raptor violated ethical targeting parameters, suppressed internal reporting, and endangered the integrity of Naval Intelligence." The words hit harder than the rank removal. Because they named it, Ice Raptor, in public, in front of officers, donors, reporters, and family. No longer a rumor, no longer buried. A truth dragged into the light. Then came the part I didn't expect. The Admiral turned not to Weston, to the room, and said, "I want to acknowledge the work of Commander Lena Hart. Though her name was not listed in the operation's official debrief, she provided key intelligence that has led to the current corrective action. Her dedication to ethics, precision, and duty reflects the values we are meant to uphold." He didn't ask for applause, so the room didn't offer it, but I didn't need it, because for the first time in a long time they looked at me. Not through me, not past me, at me. Weston was escorted out by 2 senior MPs. No cuffs. Just quiet. The man who once told me to stay in my lane didn't even glance in my direction. I didn't expect him to. Cowards rarely turn their heads when power stops whispering. As he left, the Admiral stepped down from the podium and walked toward me. I stood. Everyone was still watching. He stopped 2 feet away, leaned in just enough that only I could hear. I read every word of your report. Twice. I didn't speak. I didn't trust myself not to shake. Then he said, "This institution almost failed you. You didn't let it." He pulled something from his coat pocket, a challenge coin, silver, engraved with my name, not the operations. Mine. He placed it in my palm. Whatever comes next, build it better than we did. And just like that, he turned, walked away, and left me there. I didn't sit again. I left the gala while the band restarted, while people politely returned to their wine and whispers, while someone gave a speech about courage that felt instantly outdated. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. I pulled off my gloves and looked at the coin. On the edge, etched so finely I almost missed it was a quote, "Integrity isn't the absence of noise, it's the refusal to echo it." I exhaled so deeply I thought it might carry the weight of years. The next day, I arrived at my old office. The post-it on the door was gone, my nameplate was back, and on my desk sat a sealed envelope with a new assignment, Program Lead, Ethics Integration and Oversight, Naval Intelligence Division. My own division, my own authority, answering to no one but the system I once thought would never hear me. I didn't dance in celebration. I didn't even call my parents. I just sat there, hands folded, eyes forward, because it wasn't about winning. It was about refusing to lose myself, and that meant more than any medal. A week later, I got a message from a junior officer I'd mentored years before. She'd heard what happened. She wrote, "They say you walked out without ever raising your voice. I hope I can do the same when my moment comes." I replied, "Don't wait for your moment. Build it, and make damn sure they remember who did." That night, I wrote in my private journal first time in months. The last line read, "I didn't fight to destroy a man. I fought to be seen, and when I was, I didn't need to stay in the room anymore, because now they know I never needed a seat. I built the table." 2 months after the gala, I stepped into a new office. No flags, no polished mahogany desk, no assistant offering coffee with a forced smile. Just a steel table, one window, and a door that locked from the inside. And still, it was the most powerful room I'd ever stood in, because this time it was mine. I didn't hang plaques, didn't display certificates or coins. I left the walls bare on purpose, because this office wasn't about ego. It was about engineering a culture where no one would ever need to go through what I did just to be heard. The department gave me a title, Program Lead, Ethics Integration and Oversight. I gave myself a mission: protect the voices no one listens to until they scream. The first thing I did was audit our whistleblower protocols. Not just the language, the design, the waiting periods, the chains of command, the veiled threats hidden under HR speak. I rewrote them all, every line, every clause, until they sounded like what they were supposed to be, a promise. I interviewed junior analysts, field translators, logistics techs. I asked them what they feared. Their answers weren't about war. They were about being left out of briefings, being labeled disruptive for asking questions, having their names removed from reports after doing all the work. Different ranks, same silence. I saw myself in every one of them. And I made it clear this division existed for them now, not for optics, for function. I wasn't naive. Power doesn't go quietly. But I knew something most of them didn't. Power can be taught to respect quiet when quiet knows its own worth. One day, 6 weeks into the role, I was asked to speak at a leadership luncheon. All officers, all ranks above 05. The topic: command accountability and cultural reform. They expected a lecture. I gave them a story. Not the Weston story, not Ice Raptor, not the Gala. Just a small one. About the time I was 27 and flagged a faulty drone target while the team lead ignored me. The strike missed. No one thanked me. But a week later, that team lead called me into his office and said, "I don't know how you saw it, but you did. Next time, don't wait to raise your voice." I told the room, sometimes it's not about who's in command. It's about who had the courage to be right alone. You don't need a louder voice. You need to stop pretending you can't hear her. They clapped. But I didn't stay for the compliments, because I didn't come here to be admired. I came to build what I couldn't find when I needed it most. A year passed, then another. One morning I was invited to the Naval Gala again. This time my name was spelled correctly, my title included. The RSVP card read, Reserved seat, Commander Lena Hart, guest of honor. I didn't go. I mailed the card back with a note, leave the seat empty, let the next one sit down without needing permission. Somewhere Weston still exists. He faded without scandal, took a quiet retirement, moved out of state. No ceremony, no court-martial, just silence. The same kind he once weaponized. Now it's all he has left. And me, I live with clarity. Not comfort, not status, not peace. Clarity. The kind that lets you sleep knowing you didn't let them define you, that you held the line even when the system tried to blur it, that you didn't burn the house down. You rebuilt it from the inside out. I still get messages, young officers, analysts, civilians. They say I read what you did. You gave me permission to speak. You made me believe I wasn't crazy, and all I ever write back is you weren't. They just wanted you to think you were. The final entry in my personal journal is dated the day after the Admiral handed me that coin. It says, "This wasn't revenge, this was remembrance. I remembered who I was before they made me question it, and I made sure they'll never forget it again." That's the story, not of how I lost my seat, but of how I built my own table and left the chair open for the next woman they try to silence.